Hello Nidorinas and Nidorinos, I'm KingNido, and today it is the Holon Allies going up against the Pastoria Hydros, and as these two sides have a look at their opening hands, let's have a look at this tale of the tape where the Hydros have gotten their season exactly how they wanted it to start, where they've taken a win in round 1 and they want to follow that up here as they are currently sitting in 4th place, whereas for the Holon Allies, they are still trying to get their first series win since Season A1. So with that said, let us know in the comments below who you think is going to win this matchup. Will it be the rainbow decks? Will it be the water decks? Let's go!
3, 2, 1, go!
Now going first, it is going to be that Angel Grove deck of the Holon Allies moving their Cubone into the active spot. It is the Shelter on the bench and in the active spot for the Brooklet Hill deck of the Pastoria Hydros. But the Allies, as we said, still trying to get their first series win since Season A1, and they've pulled the Alolan Marowak. They do have the Flareon in hand as well as 2 Kiaways, and they do put that Poison Barb onto the Cubone, trying to discourage the Pastoria Hydros from going on the offensive here, as they have done all they can really do for this turn. They do send it over to the Hydros, who have their Guzma. They've just pulled the fishing net, but they play that Guzma immediately. That is going to discard that Poison Barb off of Cubone, so they can get that energy onto the Shoulder and freely go for the tackle. It does only do 10 damage, but they don't have to worry about that poison status condition onto the Shoulder. As it comes back over to the Allies, they pull their Penny. They are looking at that Alolan Marowak here, and they are going to get it online. Now those Kiaways can generate 2 fire energy onto the Alolan Marowak. This immediately ends their turn though, but this will allow them to go on the offensive with it in the coming turn here, as this deck for the Holon Allies, the Angel Grove deck, does generate darkness and fire type energy, but it is the Cloister that is now coming online for the Hydros, and it only requires 2 energy. So with this second energy onto it, this guard press will do 50 damage, but it also takes 20 less damage in the coming turn, and that weakness comes into play, so they actually get to do an additional 20 to the Alolan Marowak. It is the Umbreon being pulled for the Holon Allies, as they are going to play the Penny. They're looking to get a supporter card from the deck of the Hydros, but it's the Lana. That is not going to be any good to them here. They need, for this Burning Boomerang to take Cloister off the board, they need 2 heads. They get a Tails, they get 1 heads. It's only going to do 70 damage to the Cloister, and this is fantastic for the Hydros, because even though they've got that burn to contend with, as they do go for their checkup here, and they flip the head, so already Cloister has been cured of that burn, or recovered from the burn, so they pull their own Lana card, but they're not worried about that. They can immediately take game 1 here. They're having a look at their hand though, so they're a bit cautious. They don't want to make any mistakes, but with this, it is the Brooklet Hill deck that will take game 1 in this 3-game series. The Allies unable to get a benched Pokemon, and just like that, that is the end of game 1, so we will have a quick table reset. But so far, if you're enjoying what you're seeing, make sure to leave a like and subscribe so you don't miss any of the action in the PokeType League TCG. Now it will be the Allies once again going first, this time with the Team Friendship deck, and we're still workshopping that name, as they do have the Eevee and the Carablast in hand. Now this deck generates Metal and Psychic type energy. They get the Carablast into the active spot with the Eevee on the bench. They're going up against this Luminous Frost deck of the Pastoria Hydros, and they've got the Alolan Vulpix and the Alolan Sandshrew plus their evolutions, both of them already in hand. This is a great start for the Hydros, and we're only into game 2. Now regardless of what happens in these first 2 games, teams still get rewarded for a win in that 3rd game, regardless of the outcome of the first 2. So even though the Hydros want to lock up the series here, each win of all 3 games, you get 2 points counted towards the leaderboard, as well as that damage and the eliminations counted, as we see the Eevee EX and the Drillbur being pulled for the Holon Allies. Now this is the only the only EX cards that we will see in the PokeType League TCG, but if they do lay it out, the Holon Allies, if they do lay it out, they have to evolve it at the earliest opportunity, regardless of whether or not it benefits them. As it comes over to the Vulpix, they go with that Call Forth Cold, so they can get that second energy onto it, and it comes back over to the Allies. They do get the Poison Barb. They immediately get that onto the Carablast here. And they can also evolve that Drillbur, but currently they are only generating Psychic type energy. So this is not quite the start the Allies want, as the Hydros having all the cards they want in hand. They can get that Alolan Ninetales on in the coming turn, as that headbutt 10 damage here to the Alolan Vulpix. They're trying to discourage the Hydros from going on the offensive with that Poison Barb being on the Carablast, but there it is, the Alolan Sandslash coming online, and so does the Alolan Ninetales. It still requires one more energy, but with this Blizzard 60 damage to the opposing active Pokemon, Carablast only has 60 health, but not just that, it does 20 damage to each of the bench Pokemon on the side of the Holon Allies. And this is not how the Allies wanted their round 2 game to go, whereas for the Hydros, this is exactly where they want to be. They are in full control. It is the Eevee being moved into the active spot here, as those leftovers restore 10 health for the Ninetales, as it does have to contend with that poisoning from the Poison Barb. It is the Carablast being moved onto the bench, as the Escavalier was just pulled for the Holon Allies. They are going to get a Psychic type energy onto the Eevee, as well as playing the Guzma, so they get the leftovers off of the Ninetales. But with that said, they are still generating Psychic type energy. It is not a metal energy that's being produced on the next turn, as that tackle does 20 damage to the Ninetales. The poisoning doing the additional 10. It is a Vanillish for the second turn in a row being pulled for the Hydros, but those Blizzards continue as Sandslash gets its one and only required energy, and it is another point for the Hydros. One more point and they will lock up game 2. This is terrible for the Allies. The Hydros are looking like they are going to be aiming for a clean sweep very soon. It's the Leafeon being pulled for the Holon Allies here, as the Excadrill has come online, and we can see it's the next turn that there will be a metal energy being produced for this Team Friendship deck. And the EVX has come online, as has the Escavalier, and they do get that metal and the Psychic energy onto the Excadrill. It only requires one metal energy to go on the offensive, doing 50 damage. It is the Vanillite being pulled for the Hydros. They immediately get that onto the bench here, and they are going to get that one energy that is required for it before it can go for that Sweets Relay. But it's the Blizzard continuing from the Ninetales, leaving Excadrill with only 10 health remaining. Ninetales has 40 health, most of that thanks to the poisoning. The Penny has been pulled for the Allies. We saw this earlier. They're trying to capitalize on a supporter card in the deck of this Luminous Frost, and it is the Professor's Research. So they get an additional 2 cards. They get the second Dribble, they get the second Escavalier. The Leafeon is on a line, and we can already see the next turn it will be a Psychic type energy. But here is the Metal energy onto the Excadrill, and with this Slash, it is going to wipe this Ninetales off the board, capitalizing on its weakness as well, getting that additional 20 damage. It is in the discard pile, and the Allies have taken their first point in this series, let alone game. But it is the Sandslash immediately moved into the active spot, and the Hydros just need this extra point to lock up this game. With this Spike Armor, it can do 20 damage. They can go straight for the win. Teams normally would do that, but to maximize their damage, they do get that Vanillish online, moving it into the active spot, retreating the Sandslash, and with this Sweets Relay, it does 30 damage. That additional 10 damage, again, could count towards a team making it into, or count towards the Hydros making it into victory road, as they take game 2 in dominating fashion. And here we have our last table reset. It is the Allies trying to avoid the clean sweep, as the Hydros flipping heads will be going first with their Ruins of Hope deck. They do move the Popular into the active spot. It is the Eevee EX as the only basic Pokemon for the Holon Allies. Each of the 3 decks for the Allies do have one Eevee EX that they can use, again granted that special permission so that they could capitalize on the Eevee Grove set. Now the Hydro is going first, pull their second Brion. They've got both of them already in hand. They do play their Professor's Research, so they get an additional 2 cards. They get the Primarina already. They've got the Big Melisada, the Rare Candy, and the leftovers. They could actually get the Primarina on a line on their next turn with that Rare Candy, as it comes over to the Holon Allies with their Tropical Takedown deck. They are going to play the Penny. They're going to be able to use the Lily card, but again, that will have no effect for the Holon Allies, as this deck does generate those Water and Lightning type energies. They get the Water energy onto the EVX, so it can go for this bite. 30 damage, already having the health of the Popular. They need to be quick on the offensive. Now they have to evolve EVX into that Jolteon in the next turn, because it is in their hand for Unfortunately, they will be generating a lightning energy as the Hydros. They do get the Brionne online. It is the Carvanha that was just pulled, moved onto the bench, and the big Malasada being used onto the Brionne as well to restore 10 health, and they do get the leftovers onto it, wanting to ensure that they can restore as much health onto this Brionne as possible. With the Wave Splash, it's 30 damage onto the EVX, and there is that 10 health again being restored for the Brionne. As it comes over to the Holon Allies, they pull their rare candy that can be used to get that Vikavolt online, as they do get that Jolteon on to the active spot. They do get an energy on it, and they do have the Eevee back here. They can restore 20 health for the Jolteon, or they can do an additional 10 damage, and they're going with the additional 10 damage. A very interesting play, because this beginning bolt already does 70 damage plus, well, thanks to that Eevee bag, but that weakness coming into play, it did 90 damage, so they were going to wipe that Poplar off the board regardless. They could have restored the health, they could be trying to maximize the damage considering what they've taken over the previous 2 games. It is the Tapu Fini being pulled for the Hydros as they've moved the Carvanha into the active spot, and they do get a first of 3 required energy onto the Tapu Fini. They're willing to let the Carvanha take the hits here, as it is the electrical cord being pulled for the Holon Allies, and they're continuing to generate these lightning energy. Jolteon only requires 1. They need another basic Pokemon as they take their second point here in game 3. 1 more point and the Allies will ensure it is not a clean sweep, as the Hydros move their Tapu Fini into the active spot. It still requires 2 more energy, but they do pull the Poison Barb. They immediately get the Poison Barb on the Tapu Fini, but with that Spiral Drain, it does do 60 damage. Jolteon only has 60 health remaining. Keeping in mind that Eevee bag they used earlier, they didn't restore the health of Jolteon. It is a second Charger Bug being pulled for the Allies. They get the electrical cord onto the Jolteon, but there's no benched Pokemon here, and Jolteon does not have enough health. And with the beginning bolt, 60 damage onto the Tapu Fini, that Poison Barb is activated, but the Allies have made a crucial error with that Eevee bag. They didn't restore the health of the Jolteon. With that said, Jolteon is dealing with that poisoning as well, so it may not have made a difference, but there it is, game 3. The Hydros with this Ruins of Hope deck took 1 point, but they took the win because there was no benched Pokemon for this Tropical Takedown deck, and it is a clean sweep that will put the Hydros on top of the leaderboard, as next round they are going up against the Turffield Ebonies, whereas for the Allies, they're still trying to turn things around, as next round they are going up against the Opelucid Frontiers. But until then, Nidorinos, thank you so much for watching. Let us know in the comments below what you thought the best card was, and if you enjoyed what you saw, please leave a like, share, subscribe, but more importantly, always remember, send thanks, and I'll see you when you see me.